Hello, and welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose. And it's time to have a look ahead to the third Ashes Test as Australia and England shape up to go toe to toe with the Ashes on the line in Adelaide. Of course, if you're joining us for the first time or you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe down below. Get involved in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know where we've got these things wrong, where we've got them right, or other opinions and takes on what's shaping up as a cracking third Test in Adelaide. But as we like to do when we dig into these previews, we need a co-host to come along and get involved with me. And we're going to welcome on debut on the Chris McPherson Show, Adam Clements, or Clem. Clem, good to have you on, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. Good to be here. I'm excited for Wednesday. It should be good.
Yeah, exactly. It is not far away now. This is going to be out on Monday night. So, Wednesday's less than 36 hours essentially till we get started.
Yep.
And despite the fact that we are up 2-0, there's still some airs of, I guess, not concern, but I'm not sitting here just going, we're absolutely going to smash them. It's 3-0 guaranteed. Like, yes, we can seal the Ashes in Adelaide, and I think we'll do it, but I'm not going it's 100% to 0% here.
No, I mean, definitely through the first two tests, there was times when England could say they were on top. And if they can capture that, I think it will go a long way towards them having more dominant moments in the next test. And I think, if they can snag one, even a draw doesn't get them the series, but it gives them confidence going the last two tests. But a win definitely is now the question, because there was definitely times in the first two tests where they could have taken over, but they just couldn't grasp those moments.
Yeah, I think that's the piece, right? Like, there's been windows, there's been partnerships, but they haven't been able to put together multiple of them. But that said, again, with the Aussies, there's been times when we have a look. You look in Brisbane there, and no one really went on with it in that first innings. Where Joe Root did, we didn't. So if they can get those, cameo roles that we got a lot of in Brisbane, put together with a Joe Root or a Harry Brook going big, all of a sudden it's a very different game. If they had a couple of guys get a couple of half centuries in that first innings, we're then chasing, instead of 60 something, we're chasing 150, 180 in that second innings, and I personally think it's a different ballgame. I think we probably still scrape over the line, but it's just the approaches suggest that I think the margins of victory have been a little flattering in the end.
I agree. I think it only takes someone like Zach Crawler to get really going, and he did. I think a bit in Brisbane, I think 76 or something in the first innings. Guys like him, Harry Brook, if they get going, and Adelaide track will probably be a bit slower than the first two, so a bit less bounce. I think they might be looking forward to this test as a way to sort of wrestle some control back in the series.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. I think it's going to be less intimidating for them. I know they've got Jofra Archer, and he was obviously bowling pretty aggressively and pretty loose at the back end of the Brisbane test. But on that note, they bring in Jaden Tongue, an interesting sort of rotation of their fast bowlers. Considering again that Perth was only a couple of days, we know Mark Wood's gone home, but Atkinson moving out for Tongue wasn't completely perplexing, but I was a little bit surprised they didn't probably stick with a similar 11.
I think Atkinson was hard done by compared to Bryden Cast, who went at 6 and over for a long period of that Test match. He was pedestrian, really, and I think Atkinson probably has a high ceiling, and so I was a bit surprised by that. Now with Jofra Archer, his attitude in that second Test stunk the house down for most of the Test, and obviously we all saw it at the end of the game. He perked up. There was words. But on attitude alone, I don't think he gets picked for some Test teams, because he was shocking until that last period of play. But on the flip side of that, he might be fired up now. I don't really know how he ticks, obviously, but if he can grasp that hunger again, he could be dangerous in Adelaide.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what's in the deck. And, you talked on it before. It's probably not going to be as juicy as Perth or Brisbane. And again, maybe that's what they're looking at with an Atkinson is saving him for Melbourne. And maybe to that point, they're just trying to get everything out. But at this point, I'm saying, you have to your point before, you have to either draw at the minimum or win this test to keep it alive. Australia win this, the Ashes is done, and it's back here. And yes, lots of people go, oh, well, they're bound to lose one of the last three tests. But, I mean, if that's how you're approaching it, well, you may as well not be on the tour here. But, yeah, interesting to see. As I said, I'm happy to be proven wrong by Jaden Tongue, but he's not the intimidatory bowler that is going to really give me nightmares if I'm an Aussie batter.
No, that's right. I think that their best bowling group included Mark Wood and Jofra Archer together, and obviously that fell over very fast. And really, it surprised me how quickly they lost steam in Brisbane, because Australia has based entire summers on getting the other team out in the field and baking them until they're just cooked. And especially the English aren't used to that sort of heat. And we're expecting another few hot days in Adelaide. The forecast, day 1, 35 degrees, day 2, 39, day 3, 34. So if we win the toss and bat long, or even get them out cheaply and get into bat for the second day, they could be in for a long period in the field again, and that will bust them right up.
Well, I think to be fair, they sort of did themselves in Perth a little bit, because they're not used to bowling, on a short turnaround, right? Like, so they'll bowl and then their team will bat for a day and a bit. And because they then got bundled out and their batters didn't help them, then they were forced to turn around in hotter conditions than they're used to playing in on a shorter turnaround. And Archer, to be fair, hasn't got reams and reams of Test cricket in recent years on his resume,
No.
and you could see that. I think if you look at Perth numbers, he was 13, 14 Ks down on average in the second innings. So the good news for him is now they've, as everyone has been watching social media, they've had a wonderful time at Noosa getting beat at beach cricket by kids and bunches of other things. So they're playing themselves into form.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things where they'll either look back at the end of this series and say that trip to Noosa galvanised us to be a better team, or as it has been so far, it's been a circus really. And then they land back in Brisbane, or they get back to Brisbane to transit over to Adelaide, and they have the scuffle in the airport. And I'm not a tabloid, but it wasn't a good look. It feels like they're sort of in damage control at the moment.
Yeah, it does a little bit. I mean, you can talk to that around the staff member and what that really means, but it's certainly going to be interesting. The other thing that I found interesting today is I saw some content of the Adelaide Oval, their curator, and he was talking very much about how he wants to make it a spin-friendly wicket, and he doesn't love the fact that Nathan Lyon obviously didn't play in the last Test, but only bowled 2 overs so far for the series, and that spin gets people excited. Nathan Lyon was quoted in the article as well that that's when people watch. And to be fair, most of our cricket watching history has seen. You and I grew up with SK Warne, SCG McGill, and 2 of the greatest leg spinners to grace this earth. We were probably blessed, and now we've had Nathan Lyon. So it certainly does turn the game. Does that bode well or poorly, do you think, for how the lineup shape? Obviously, we'll talk about the Aussie lineup in a moment, but for the English, in terms of their spin cartel, it's a bit light on.
It's a bit weird. I mean, Shoaib Bashir has been their golden child, their project, I think, and they've come out publicly and said he's our version of Nathan Lyon. We've got him. We've got designs on him to dominate an Ashes series, and we haven't seen him yet. And now we're in a must-win game, and Will Jacks has come in. Joe Root sort of rolls the arm over as well, with some success. But it's just very puzzling to me that Bashir hasn't had a chance to play. It's considering what they've said about him in the past, it just seems very strange that he's not there.
Yeah, for mine now, the only way he gets in is he plays a conciliatory test in Sydney when the series is already done, potentially. But, if Jack shines here, and this, remembering that Jack's a guy who's played, three tests?
Yeah.
5 tests.
Yeah.
5 tests now?
Not many.
3 tests, 5 innings. And his best bowling ever is 6 for 161.
Yeah.
He's got a strike rate of nearly 60. He's got an average of nearly 40. Again, very limited sample size, and he might turn it around and prove us all wrong. Maybe he'll do a Steve Smith and turn into a top-order batter, because that seems to be the backup career they've got planned for him. But to your point, I think that a lot's going to fall on Joe Root's shoulders if Australia do manage to bat long. It's going to be an interesting piece for the English as to what they do. And, Australia could have found themselves in the same situation, and we kind of did to a small element in Brisbane. But, yeah, again, if you're Bashir, you've got to be wondering, what you got to do to get a start. Surely in a must-win game where it's a deck that, is going to take the spin. It's not the day-night that we've seen in Adelaide in recent times. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So,
I will say though, the second 11 that Shoaib Bashir has been playing in haven't exactly put their best efforts forward. They got absolutely flogged by Australia A last week. Nathan McSweeney got 220 something. They lost by an innings and some insane amount, which is it just sort of shows how low they must be at the moment. Not to kick them while they're down, because there's definitely potential for them to turn it around with this lineup, but and quickly. But yeah, it was shocking to see them getting dominated in a second 11 game and the England game at the same time.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well for English cricket on Australian shores,
No.
but again, it's almost what we've come to expect. Well, speaking of the Aussie team, despite getting 220 something not out, Nathan McSweeney won't get a call up.
No.
What do you see as the changes? Obviously, Pat Cummins is the key one that we're talking about. He will come back in and captain the side in this test, as we understand it.
Yeah.
You'd expect Nathan Lyon to come back in. I guess, are they straight switches for Nisa and Doggett, or what? First of all, what do you expect to see happen? And secondly, what would you do if you were selecting the 11? Because they might be two very different things, Clem.
They definitely are, and that's the reason why I'm not a selector. But so obviously Cummins comes back in. Lyon, I think, is a shoe-in. And yeah, I think what they will do is Nisa and Doggett will go. I think Doggett has been let down a bit by the plan they had for him in Brisbane, because there was a time in that first innings where he just bowled short, and the English batsmen just rotated the strike for a long time, and it felt like the game was starting to get away. But then, so I think he'll make way, obviously. But my thoughts on what I would do is, I think if you go up 2-0, you give yourself the opportunity to give Scott Boland a rest, and then Nisa maybe stays. I don't think they'll do that, but Boland in Sydney and Melbourne, that will suit him down to the ground a bit more than Adelaide. So it wouldn't be fully out of the picture for the lineup to be Cummins, Lyon, Stark, and Nisa. I don't think Doggett will play again in this series.
Isn't it interesting? Like, Brendan Doggett dominated on the Adelaide Oval pitch in Sheffield Shield over the last two seasons, or season and a half, but he won't get a look in. But that's just, I guess it talks to the plethora of pace options that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, I like what you're talking about as well with Nisa, purely because he gives us a bit more batting depth as well. We saw that, right? Like, we've seen that in Shield cricket. He probably didn't give us absolutely the best of that. And let's be honest, Mitch Stark was probably paying a pretty big price to be the high bat in those things. But what can't Starkey do at the moment? What is he, 3 tests in a row now as man of the match? Just let him keep on running. That's got to be a record of some sort, surely.
I think it is, yeah. And it really there's a tinge of nostalgia watching a left arm quick from Australia dominate a home Ashes series. Like, obviously Mitchell Johnson 12 years ago ripped the skin off England, and it was incredible. And now Stark's doing the same thing with bat and ball. The nostalgia is definitely there.
Yeah, it certainly is. All we need now is for an Englishman to retire and go home mid-series, and we've got it all wrapped up again, right? So
I have my money on Archer, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, no, I was starting to think it might have been Zach Crawley the way he started, but he came good in the last test, as you touched on. In terms of the Aussie batting order, as I touched on, it would have been nice to see some of those guys that got starts in the Brisbane test go on with those. The Travis Head and Jake Weatherald opening partnership seems to be working. I mean, let's be honest here; they're not exactly knocking the door down for inclusion in the Test Team of the Year with what they've put up just yet, but it's been solid enough. There was some whispers a few days ago about Usman Khawaja maybe coming back in the middle order, and I just thought this is going. And I'm unabashedly an Usman Khawaja fangirl, right? Like, I love Uzi.
So am I.
I think he's one of the greats, one of the great people. You see how he is around the team, what he means to that team. But if he comes in, it's got to be head back to the middle order, surely. Like, I know Uzi way back when did bat in the middle order at times, and even when he came in, that's where he sort of came in that Ashes series a couple of years ago when COVID, when Travis Head, funnily enough, was out, all that sort of stuff. But that's not his home, even if they're trying to give him farewells.
Yeah, I think it seems very foreign now for us to be tinkering with the batting order so often outside of injuries, because obviously there's always going to be a rotation with bowlers, but summer's gone by. You just have your top 7. That's it, don't you? You don't get too funky with it if you don't have to. And I mean, if Kawaja comes back in, I think he will, uh, because I think there's a bit of romance around having a farewell series for him from this is a very popular teammate. Um, and that's not generally, obviously, that's not generally a rule that you pick someone because they're popular, but I think what they will do is Head will slide back down the order. I did think they might rip the band-aid off and just go Head and Weather all at the top, but I don't think that's what they'll do. I think Kawaja will come back in, Head will go back down. We'll have the same top seven as we had for the first test.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch and see how that all plays out, I guess, as well. Because there's part of me that'd love to see it, but there's also a part of me that says you pick your best seven batters. But I
Mm.
also love, and I know you're a fan of this man too, who's been on the show a few times, Paul Dennett.
Yeah,
There's an element that I love about his theory that as long as you get your seven best batters in there, it doesn't really matter that much.
not
There's only
really, no.
small elements
Yeah,
of it that matter about where they bat. And there's a part of me that would love just a rogue, like in a T20 match where they're just like, right, the left-hander gets out, we're just going to send another left-hander in. I mean, we've got plenty of them, but you start, just going right. It doesn't actually matter too much. Steve Smith can bat at 3. It doesn't matter. Marnus can slide down, and I mean, it's kind of what we've had to do we had to do it in the first test. We did it in the second test, not so much out of necessity, but out of structure, and it's kind of working. So maybe it wouldn't be all that rogue to say this, but maybe Paul
no,
Dini knows a
definitely.
thing or two about cricket.
Yeah, no, I definitely think he does. He spends a lot of time on it. And he loves it. And I think really coming back to this Australian batting lineup, Josh Inglis has done Usman Khawaja a solid because if he got over 50 runs, I don't reckon Khawaja comes back in. Uh, and just thinking about your T20 analogy with having lefties coming in for lefties, etc., etc. Uh, is there a world where the pitch flattens out late on day 2 and Australia come into bat and they say, "Oh, we're going to slide Khawaja down the order and put Head in to open because the match situation suits it."
That's a possibility, right? Like it's a possibility that depending on the circumstances and the deck and everything else, that as you say, if there's a bit of spice in it, that you go right, well, we just stick with Usman. I mean, when you name your
Yeah,
11, you don't have to name what order they're coming out in,
no,
right?
that's right.
So,
Yeah.
but hey, based on recent form, maybe Mitch Stark comes in at 4.
Well, exactly. He's earned his spot, hasn't he? He can do what he wants this summer. To be honest, I mean, and actually, like, I mean, just with our lineup, if you have Stark, Cummins, and Nisa playing, that is a long tail. That's going to be one of the best tails you can get at the moment. Especially, I mean, Stark's form and Cummins and Nisa can both hold a bat.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? You end up batting all the way down to 10. Even if you've got Nathan Lyon. Nathan Lyon is much. I know even when he plays like Shield cricket and grade cricket, he loves to bat at 11. Nathan
Yeah,
Lyon is a number 9 batsman. He's not a number 11 batsman. So
yeah,
to have that, when you look back
yeah,
versus the days of, we had Glenn McGrath batting at 11, where it was just like, you could have put a witch's hat out there. It might have been almost as effective sometimes. No
yeah,
disrespect to the
exactly.
great pigeon, but it's one of those pieces, right? So it does stack up really well. It gives us a lot of diversity in our batting and bowling options. And again, to the spin point, similar to England, we've got some guys that, as you said, can handle enough in Travis Head and Marnus. I don't want to, up him too much because God knows he'll do it. He'll be happy to come and bowl medium pace and spin and whatever else you need him to do. But we've
Yeah,
got some other options there if it does really flatten out and it turns to spin. Let's say we lose the toss and we bat second. In that 4th innings, I don't mind. Travis Head a few overs before lunch, Marnus a few overs in dipping light. At the end of the day, those sorts of things.
yeah,
So we've got some options there. But again, we've got the greatest spinner that's currently active in Test cricket
yeah.
rolling the arm over as well.
And he's still under pressure. I mean, he bowled 2 overs in the first test. He missed a test in the West Indies, if I remember correctly,
Kingston, the
on
day night
lineup in
test again.
Kingston,
Yep.
the day night test, and then he missed the one in Brisbane. I mean, it's not like he hasn't had a stink on him, but it's very odd for a player that has that many wickets to miss out on 2 tests so close together due to a lineup. How the lineup to look, but hopefully he gets to play the last 3 tests. And actually saw the great Pigeon McGrath the other day saying he should retire right now because I then went and checked how many wickets he's on. He's 1 wicket behind Glenn McGrath. So Pidge is campaigning to get Lyon not to get selected ever again.
Yeah, well, again, a little bit of self-interest there from the great man.
Yeah,
I'm sure,
yeah,
though, he'd be more than happy to celebrate Nathan Lyon taking a bag on day 3 in the pink day in Sydney. So
yeah,
it will be interesting to see how that plays out. The other one, back to Usman Khawaja, there's a part of me that says they don't pick Usman. Do you know why? Because if he fails
Yeah.
in Adelaide, it's really hard to continue to mount the case to play him in Melbourne and Sydney. And I feel like there's a part of them, if he doesn't play in Adelaide and we win and the series is locked up, then he can go Melbourne and Sydney and it doesn't really matter too much and they can give him that farewell, which I don't necessarily agree with the theory of. But again, I'm such an Usman fangirl that I'm like, give him the farewell, especially after what he did last time they played England in Sydney.
Yeah. It was 195. Was that against England? I think I remember that. Yeah. I agree with you. I like. There's a big romance around having a farewell tour, and not every player gets one. Not every player times their run to do that. But I'm sure that if they get the chance to, and if this series is wrapped up, they'll do everything they can to get him in the lineup for Sydney, even though it's not really in keeping with their selection policy on picking the best 11. But if the series is gone, I can't see a reason why they wouldn't do that.
On the end of the day, best is a very variable word. What are we talking about? Are we talking about the best batsmen, the best cricketers, the best blokes? Based on the way you see his teammates get around him, best blokes, I think he's probably, he's probably opening the batting and the bowling. But we'll leave that for Mitchell Starc for now. Interestingly, Usman was quoted yesterday on the ABC by saying, "I can bat anywhere and will bat anywhere for Australia, as will I if the selectors are listening."
Yeah. Well, Andrew McDonald actually said the same thing. He said that Usman's not just an opener, so I mean, really, it's anyone's guess, and who knows if it's just Ducks and Drakes with this English side to try and put them off. But I think they've got enough issues in their own camp without worrying about who Australia puts out. They know Australia's going to put out a strong lineup no matter what, so they just need to be up for it.
All right, Clem. Well, now's the time for us to put our money where our mouth is. Let's talk through what our predictions are. Have you got the Aussies wrapping up the Ashes, I guess, in Adelaide is the first question.
I think I do. Look, I've got a little stat here for you. When England were here last time, they lost the Ashes in 12 days. Even if this test goes to day 5 and they lose or have a draw, they've lost the Ashes in 11 days. That's if it goes to 5 days. And on current form, I mean, who knows? It depends on how the pitch plays, but it's not out of the question for them to lose the Ashes in 10 days or 9 days even.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. My math says if it's a draw, though, they'll retain. Like if they draw this match and then win the next 2, they would retain the Ashes, though, right? So it's not lost if they draw.
No, we hold the Ashes, so we'd be. It's all over if it's a draw here.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So loss or draw, they've lost the Ashes in less time than they did last time.
There you go. That's that's pretty wild to think a draw would play that out for them.
Yeah. So as for obviously I've got Australia wrap it up in Adelaide. As for how it's going to play out, I guess a lot of it depends on the toss. It would be great to see Australia bat into day 2 and bake those English bowlers until the middle of the second session, but and put a big score up and then go to work themselves with the ball. But the way the toss is going lately, they're probably going to end up bowling first again, which isn't always a bad option. The way they're coming out of Stark's hand at the moment.
Yeah, I don't mind that, to be fair. I can see us bowling England out, late on day 1, early on day 2, and then batting day 2 and 3 and hopefully putting some runs on. But that just might be the one-eyed patriotism of me. In terms of that, who is it? Mitch Starc making it 4 men in the match of the row? What have you got here? What's some of these narratives in terms of, who's going to be the good performers for both sides or the best performers for both sides?
Wouldn't it be awesome to see Starc do that again, go 4 men in the matches in a row? But I think I'd love to see Smith get some big runs. I think he got 60 odd and then hold out when they were well in control. I think it was behind, caught it backward square leg, I think, or even sort of a 45 degree. So yeah, I would love to see Starc get a bag, Lyon hopefully get a few wickets as well. For England, I think that it's going to be probably Harry Brook needs to get some runs. I mean, when he gets going, he's electric. He's in the top 5 batsmen in the world right now. I think he's number 2 on the ICC list. So he's desperate for runs. And then, like I said, this pitch might play a bit better for some of those guys that are used to a bit less bounce. So yeah, I think that's all I can see for now. And Josh Tongue coming in, I'm not sure how his confidence will be after getting smacked around by a second 11, but I'm sure he'll be up for the task anyway. How about you?
Well, he's got nothing to lose, that's for sure. I think the
That's
man
right.
that's under the most pressure is actually Ollie Pope.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think if he doesn't get runs in this test, he's out of the team. And I think we'll see Will Jackson come up, and that's where we might see a Bashir come in. Or they might just,
Mm-hmm.
if they decide that the MCG pitch is juicy, then they might just bring Atkinson back in and go all that pace if Tongue goes okay. So I think he's under a lot of pressure. But I think to your point, Harry Brook needs to live up to his reputation. He's going to end up with that Joe Root moniker that Joe Root had in his first
Mm-hmm.
few Ashes series. I know he's got his 100 now. He still hasn't won a series on
No,
test on
hasn't won a
Australian
test. He has
soil,
not won
though.
a
So
test. Yeah.
yeah,
I
exactly
think
right.
I think that's the more damning stat to me. Anyway, not to digress, but the fact he's played 16 tests here and has 0 wins is, I think, worse than zero hundreds.
Yeah, look, I'm going to give the guy credit. Like, he's a prolific run scorer, but he's also someone who, I don't think he's, always been someone who, when he gets runs, like, you'd remember the Steve Waugh. Steve Waugh would dig deep and get runs that turn tests. Joe Root just gets runs. Like, he just gets runs. They're
Yep.
not necessarily match affecting a lot of the time, unfortunately, for England, which is kind of a weird thing to say because big runs should affect the result. But, when the batting's there to be made, he does take opportunity for it. And I think we've got to doff our cap to him. He's going to be one of the greatest run scorers in Test cricket history for probably ever in a day. I'm actually going Nathan Lyon. I think Nathan Lyon's going to take an absolute bag in the second innings. I think we're going to actually win the toss this time, bat first, put some runs on. They'll put some runs on. Then we'll get a chance to bowl them in the fourth innings. And I reckon Nathan Lyon, it won't quite be like amazing Adelaide Shane Warne style where, everything's against him. But, we might be defending, 230 or 210. And Nathan Lyon's going to go and rip through them and get about 7 for 70. So
Oh
that's
wow, wouldn't
what
that
I'm
be good?
tipping. And in
Yeah,
terms of the runs, I actually think it's going to be the hometown heroes, Trav Head and Alex Carey, that are going to star.
yeah,
They'll
that's a
love
good
to put on a
shout.
show for the Adelaide Oval faithful. So some nice stories there, very, very, essay oriented.
Yeah, very much so, and that is sort of what breaks my heart with Brendan Doggett. It would be awesome for him to play in front of his home crowd, but there's just not a place for him at the moment, unfortunately. But that's a great shout. I mean, see someone like Alex Carey's been in the spotlight up from his keeping, but he's also a very underrated batsman at number 7 when he plays. So, yeah, that would be really good to see him get some runs.
Yeah, I was pumped for Doggett that he got to play in front. As you say, like South Australia's now his adopted state, born in
Yeah,
Queensland, so he did get to play in front of a lot of family there in Brisbane. But it would have been nice with everything he's done for South Australia, including returning that shield after that long drought
yeah,
alongside some of their other, repatriated South Australians. There's a few of them are
yeah,
Jason Sanger
yeah,
and Co, Ben Menenti, these sorts of guys.
yeah.
Yeah, it would have been great to see, but I don't think he will. He'll get to carry some drinks and maybe do some fielding. Which hey,
Yeah.
it's not a bad paid gig really when you get down to it.
Not at Adelaide Oval. It's beautiful down there. Great place to watch cricket.
One of the absolute picturesque venues around the world. But we both got it wrapping up sort of around that 4-day mark by the sounds of it, mate. So basically, if the
Yep.
punters are out there listening, just put your money on anything else.
Oh wow. Geez, I'm not really sure. I mean, you said Nathan Lyon 7 wickets in the second innings. That's a pretty big effort. Let's go Smith double ton.
Smith double ton. There we go. Well, we've
Yeah.
got our big predictions, bold predictions. A big thank you to you all for tuning in. It's obviously countdown is on for the third test. A chance to lock those Ashes in, win them. I know we retain them over there in England, but we want to win them and lock them in so that we can then go and drive the sword in deep when we get back over to England. But Clem, a big thank you to you, mate. A pearler of a debut. You'll certainly be getting
Yeah.
the call back up. It's not going to be a. I'm trying to think. Maybe it's not going to be a Cal Ferguson story. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a good shout. That's a good shout. Very happy to be here, mate. Thanks a lot for having me. That was great.
A big thank you to you all for tuning in. As always, make sure you hit subscribe down below if you haven't already. Give the video a like, get involved in the comments. And of course, you can keep up to date with our content in between episodes as well. The little snapshots, those little highlights at The Chris Mack Show on all your social media platforms. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. You can find us. But until next time, a big thank you to you for tuning into your home of the black and white of sports. No grey opinions here.